I bring you face to face today with someone who has not been just a scientist, that is an American scientist with his roots in India, but has also held coveted positions in the global firms of the United States. That is Boeing to Lockheed Martin and now General Atomic. How do you see, Dr. Lall, the role of drones in the future of warfare?
I think the future is unmanned.
When 31 MQ-9B arrive in India, it's going to be an exciting time, just as it was for the Rafale. What are the weapons that it can carry?
There are bombs that it can carry, missiles and so forth. So,
how old you were when you got Boeing?
I was 28 years old.
That is a dream job.
Yes.
Who exposed you to the idea of the Vedas?
This really came from my mother. And,
as we continue to bring the rich tales of Indian diaspora on this tour after the Prime Minister left the shores, I bring you face to face today with someone who has not been just a scientist, that is an American scientist with his roots in India, but has also held coveted positions in the global firms of the United States. That is Boeing to Lockheed Martin and now General Atomics. This interview also comes in the backdrop of a rupees 24,000 crore deal that is likely being now formalized between India and the United States that was announced during the meeting of Prime Minister Modi and Joe Biden. He is none other than Dr. Vivek Lall, who is also a brilliant scientist and spent significant years in New Delhi. Welcome to the show, Dr. Lall.
Thank you.
What an incredible career that you have had. And you make us feel proud. You make us feel go legless. You make us feel actually go gaga over what Indian scientists should do abroad. It's actually a privilege having you here. Many congratulations to you. How satisfied you feel today as an Indian scientist who settled here and born to the Indian parents.
Thank you, Rohan. It's a pleasure and honor to speak with you. Again, it's been a privileged career in that sense, having spent most of the initial career on the science and engineering front, and then, of course, to contribute to the US-India story throughout my career has been indeed a privilege.
I believe you grew up in Indonesia.
Yeah, I was born in Indonesia.
If you can take me through that journey, did you actually imagine that you would reach the pinnacle, the zenith of success here in San Diego, sitting and talking to us?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. I was born in Indonesia. I was there 2 years as my parents were posted over there, and we traveled to different parts of the world, and I grew up in different parts of the world, including Vienna, Austria, where I did my primary school education, including Dar es Salaam, Tanzania in East Africa, where I did some of my secondary education and so forth. And so traveling across the world, different continents, different languages, I happened to pick up 5 languages along the way.
And you can speak all of them?
I am
Fluently.
able to a certain extent, some not so fluent anymore.
Which are they?
So, of course, other than English and Hindi, Swahili, French and German.
Excellent. तो फिर वो दौर हुआ कैसे? Of course, you went to all these schools and institutions because your father was a diplomat. What made you actually jump into science, and what is that dream that you saw in becoming a scientist?
So very early on in my career, I think I was 5-6 years old, in Vienna, Austria, in primary school, I looked up and always used to admire airplanes as they flew by. And I always had this passion to learn more about airplanes and work with airplanes. And so somehow it turned out that my interests were in maths and science, and I tried to veer towards aerospace and aerospace engineering. And I was very fortunate that I was able to study in that. And also, because I was so passionate about airplanes, I learned how to fly. And so
You're a trained pilot?
Yes, I'm a trained private pilot.
Lovely. So, which are the institutions that you went to, if you can tell our viewers and readers to know more about how your career started in aerospace?
Yeah, so I did my bachelor's in Canada. My dad was posted, so I did it in mechanical engineering. But my last year, where I had to do a thesis, I encountered a professor that was doing it in airplane performance, and so he excited me, and I was anyway excited to get into airplanes.
Correct.
And so I did that thesis in airplane performance, and then after that I said, well, the more you learn, the less you think you know about it.
Correct.
And so I wanted to pursue a master's, so I did a master's in aeronautical engineering in Florida, and I still didn't think I knew enough. But while I was doing my master's, I got my learning in how to fly an airplane, and then I did my PhD.
Right,
and
which
my
was?
PhD was in aerospace engineering in Kansas, and that was in the field of turbulence modeling, aerodynamics, and so forth. And that's how my association with NASA started, because they were interested in that field and some of the things that I was doing.
So all this while, your mom and dad were, of course, staying away from you. They were in different field postings.
Yes.
How difficult it was to encourage yourself, persuade yourself to find your moorings, to find the directions of the good, because children at the impressionable age often become aimless. But how difficult or easy it was you during that era?
It was
not to get away with the charm of the lovely environs of the US, and to stay away from the glory of the nightlife of the US, whether it was Vegas here or New York or DC. वो ग्लोरी से आप दूर कैसे रहे, चाहे वो ड्रग्स हो, नाइट लाइफ हो, लिकर हो, or anything? The taboos for the any Indian family.
Right. I think it was a relentless pursuit of knowledge and the opportunity to gain that knowledge, because as I lived in different parts of the world, including Africa, including Europe, I saw the disparity and the opportunities that a lot of very brilliant people did not get or do not get. And so I felt blessed that I do have this opportunity to pursue my passion, and my passion truly was learning more about.
Did you find some exciting gurus or mentors on the way?
Yes, that was very key. I think a lot. I was very close to a lot of my professors. In fact, I remember a school teacher in East Africa, because I was in the international school there. She was from Denmark, and she really inspired me in mathematics. And so I was always 2 years ahead of the class, learning things in mathematics, because that was a passion. And she kind of groomed me in that sense. And similarly, when I got into the engineering field, I really connected with some professors that really stoked the passion even more to learn. And that's why I kept doing these degrees, and I would say even at the end of it all, you still don't know everything, obviously.
And any particular author or a movie or a book that shaped your career or influenced you?
I think one of the things that I found is I read a lot of non-fiction as well as fiction.
Such as?
And so in non-fiction, there's one book stands out, The Lexus and the Olive Tree. That was a very interesting book that I got from one of my mentors. And The World is Flat is another book that I got from one of my mentors. And some of these books are very inspiring.
Right.
And as my career progressed, there was a healthy mix of technology, understanding technology, but then how it applies to policy and how it applies more globally for different countries. And as a result, I spent a lot of time learning on that.
So did you also have any impressions from the spiritual gurus, or that your mother would give you lessons in religion as well, which stood you in good stead?
Absolutely. So since we moved, my parents and my sister and myself, from country to country, our home would encapsulate kind of a mini India in terms of the learnings, because we'd always be far away from India in that sense.
Is there any particular Hindu god that you follow?
No, there's no particular Hindu god that I follow, but I think more holistically as a way of life. I have done extensive reading,
such as
in Hinduism and really in the Vedas. and so that is something of personal interest.
Wow. So who exposed you to the idea of the Vedas?
This really came from my mother, and I credit her for that.
You read the scripts?
I did read the scripts, and this is something that I've read a couple of times, and every time you read it, it adds a little more. And then I do see tie-ins with real life, and I do see tie-ins with knowledge, and I do see how you're expanding the frontiers of technology and some of it, even the current issues. It is amazing how some of this actually does tie back into the Vedas.
You have talked about your stellar journey as far as your academic qualifications are concerned, which armed you with, as the conventional wisdom would suggest, the high IQ, which sort of paved the way for your entry into all these brilliant companies that you have been part of. I want to understand from you, Dr. Lall, how did Boeing happen? It's a dream job. So is Lockheed Martin, and so is General Dynamics. How did Boeing happen first to you?
I was actually doing my PhD in a city called Wichita, where all the aerospace companies are present. So I was, Beechcraft, Learjet, Cessna, and at that time Boeing. And so, like I said, when I was a young child, I would look up in the sky and look at commercial aircraft and be very fascinated. And Boeing was synonymous with aircraft at the time and commercial jets. And having moved around the world at a young age, it was always in a commercial aircraft. And I would always think that the commercial aircraft is called Boeing. So I grew up with that, and then when the opportunity came where I met someone at a conference that indicated that maybe a career to pursue in engineering at Boeing, it's as if all those stars from my childhood were aligning, and the fact that I had done a PhD in aerospace engineering, I was fascinated by that, excited by that, and I joined Boeing Commercial.
So did the negotiations happen? I would want X salary and they would offer you Y salary?
No, there was no negotiation at that time. I mean, I was very passionate about...
How old you were when you got Boeing?
I was 28 years old.
That is a dream job.
Yes.
That is a dream job for anyone. 28, you got Boeing to work with, and then from there you scaled up one position after another. Which was the highest position that you held, and which was the lowest in the hierarchy that you had?
So I started as an engineer at Boeing, and then I was very fortunate to work on engineering problems for these various aircraft, including the 777 aircraft, what was going to be the 787 aircraft.
So all that happened in front of you, 777,
yes.
And the graduation to 787?
Yes, they were working on the 787 aircraft.
You oversaw also the designs in front of you.
Right, so I was doing things that had my engineering background in there, right, in terms of aeroelastics and so forth.
But neither of the two aircraft have phased out. 777 and 787 still remain the Boeing's largest selling aircraft across the universe, and I would believe that I have a reason to believe that many countries still hope to continue with them, the airlines.
That's right.
Whether it is national carriers or otherwise. I mean.
Yes. And then Boeing had a great program, the Learning Together program, and so through that I got my MBA. I was encouraged by mentors there, and I did an MBA, and then moved into the economic side of things and the trade side of things, and the management side of things. So I moved as a manager of engineers towards sales and marketing. Within Boeing. And that too within commercial airplanes.
Right. So all this was happening in the city?
This was all in Seattle.
Right.
Both my children were born in Seattle.
So you did not have sort of a job with Boeing any other city in the US? Only that the assignment to India, I believe, I reckon it came much later.
Yes.
In the year.
And then as I was doing that at Boeing, there was an opportunity to move to India. India was, of course, growing in terms of commercial traffic, as well as the US-India defense relationship was.
So what are the memories of those sweet deals that you signed with India on behalf of Boeing, and also the memories of having the best food, which your palate tasted.
Oh yes, it was a wonderful phase where both the countries were getting closer together. So whether it was commercial aircraft or defense aircraft, there was a lot of convergence.
Which was the biggest deal that
At that time, there was the P8Is had come in, and there were C-17s, Apaches,
Correct.
all of that was incubated during that phase.
Right.
And of course, you speak about the tastes. I mean, when me and my family moved to India, I gained a lot of weight because it was an incredible array of foods that one could try, and that is my wife's is to try different foods.
तो आप कहाँ रहते थे उस दौर पे और
Yeah, I was based in Delhi.
अच्छा.
And
Which part of Delhi was this?
this was in West End area. Yeah.
Western.
West End, yeah, near Anandiketan.
अच्छा. So that's where you lived
Yeah.
all those years, and 6-7 years I think you spent. And your sons were, I believe, educated at one of the premier schools in.
Yes,
in
so
Delhi.
both our kids, boy and a girl, they were both educated at the American Embassy School, which was an excellent place to have them grow up.
Right. That sort of also brings me to another interesting question. How did the scientists fall in love, or was it an arranged marriage with your wife?
It was an arranged marriage, and that was, again, it so happened that our city of origin from our parents or grandparents happened to be, or the state of origin happened to be the same.
So the scientists do not fall in love? They do.
No, I wouldn't say that, but I think it was the happenstance that it was a
Right. Coming back to your formative years and then the work years, then of course Lockheed Martin came after Boeing, and then that was also a stint which sort of catapulted your stature and brought you to the limelight so much that India also began to recognize that they have their man in one of the top companies as well, and also the United States as well. Just like at a time when many of the politicians in the United States were also going to be Indian Americans as well. So Lockheed Martin also gave you a lot of fame as well, because you spent a significant time there as well. What was the biggest takeaway from that as well?
Yeah, Lockheed, of course, being the world's largest defense company, there was a lot of learning. I think the US-India footprint had grown. Both Boeing and Lockheed had joint ventures in the country,
Right.
a lot of industrial collaboration. When I happened to be at Lockheed, there was the MH-60 Romeo that the Indian Navy was.
Correct. I was about to ask.
Yes.
So the role that Indian Navy had at that time with Lockheed, what was it that led to take that technology from you?
Yeah, so I think that was, again, these conversations span years and decades, but I think the requirement for a platform like that was
Right.
very obvious. And so it really provided filling another gap in the arsenal that India needed
Correct.
to stay ahead in national security.
Now, of course, I want to bring to the fag end in this interview where I'm going to ask you about your job at this company, because San Diego is a dream.
Yeah.
And since you have lived almost 10 years there, I believe 2020 you joined General Atomics when you took charge here. So how was it like to work from an aircraft to a drone company and a drone specialized company which only strictly largely deals with this sort of a technology, which no other manufacturer has been, a defense manufacturer has been able to specialize in? What was it like when it came to you?
Yeah, so this General Atomics, of course, is a diversified technology company.
Right.
And I would categorize it in defense security as well as energy security, because we have various areas other than the unmanned systems. Of course, we also have nuclear fission, nuclear fusion, electromagnetics, a lot of different areas that encompass the company. And of course, being on the cutting edge of technology, the evolution of technology and incorporating it into platforms, including things that are talked about now, like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, etc. It's just a remarkable technology company. I'm so excited to be part of that growth.
But why I have asked you this question is that the satisfaction which comes from helming the affairs of General Atomics is the fact that, of course, that it's a deal between the two countries. India and the United States are two countries which are involved. It's not General Atomics per se. It's as much as the two big country heads, when they met, they found the reason to have drones coming to India, and the fact that when 31 MQ-9B arrive in India, it's going to be an exciting time, just as it was for the Rafale, which became formidable weaponry for India's armory, if I may say so, because your technology was also sort of used in Galwan in a testing way, and Galwan sort of faced India and China where they faced eye to eye. आपको कितना आज गर्व महसूस होता है कि आपकी कंपनी की टेक्नोलॉजी दोनों देशों ने उसका जिक्र किया और बोला कि नहीं, ये जाना ज़रूरी है. यूएस ने भी इसको एक अपॉर्चुनिटी मानी कि अगर ट्रेड है तो हम इंडिया को वो टेक्नोलॉजी दें. यूएस ने इंडिया को पार्टनर समझा. मैं कहूँगा एक बड़ा गर्व वाली बात है, जैसे मैं कह रहा हूँ, और इंडिया के लिए भी एक बड़ा मैं कहूँगा एक स्ट्रेंथनिंग फैक्टर है कि एक यूएस की कंपनी खुद प्रेसिडेंट अगर और प्राइम मिनिस्टर बोले कि नहीं, हमें यही टेक्नोलॉजी चाहिए, तो दैट स्पीक्स, आई बिलीव, वॉल्यूम्स अबाउट द प्रोफेशनल अप्रोच विद द टू कंट्रीज एंजॉय टुडे as far as the formidable ties are concerned.
Absolutely. The convergence of US-India defense relationships has been outstanding over the last several years.
Right.
और जैसे आप कह रहे हैं, I think both the governments
came together
to see that some of these areas like persistent surveillance, etc., is something of a requirement of the present day, given the current
scenarios and the border tensions which get escalated time to time, and also in a real life scenario which we believe where every country must always fortify its borders. So अगर मैं कहूँ कि जिक्र करूँ कि इस टेक्नोलॉजी का 31 MQ जो आएंगे हमारे पास में, इसकी खूबियाँ क्या हैं जो आप एक कंपनी के तौर पे भी बता सकें और एक एज ए साइंटिस्ट भी बताएं कि रोहन, दिस इज द हॉलमार्क ऑफ दिस ड्रोन which no one else can have it.
Yeah, I think to have persistent surveillance is very important.
Right.
And to have that at a high altitude.
Right.
And to have it for long endurance. And to have the capability of, being a deterrence as well, because you are having the capabilities to...
Such as?
To surveil, to have the intelligence
for a longer time,
to have the reconnaissance for a longer time at a higher altitude,
right.
To be able to do that in an environment, a very complex environment. That
Correct.
is a very unique capability.
And the ability to strike targets as well.
Right.
Which
so
not many can afford to do with the technology which you have.
Correct. So to have that armed capability, of course, is a game changer.
It is. And Dr. Lall, I believe that India's own three defense services, that is the Indian Army, the Air Force and Navy, they also did a lot of scientific study to zero in on this technology. It's not that it was just a random transfer. There's so much of a scientific research which went into ascertaining that why India needed this technology, because India has faced so much of threat from China, and why should we not secure our frontiers? It's our responsibility to secure the land. It's our responsibility, I believe, as an honest citizen of the country, that if we want our citizens to be secure, to grow and to get the inspiration, whether they serve the forces or whether they live in as far as the eastern Ladakh, where the territorial attacks have taken place in the past, or even smaller places of Punjab, Pathankot and Gurdaspur, where the drones attack have taken place. I was actually present at these two sites. I must tell you that in Pathankot and Gurdaspur, in both the terror attack sites, I was present when the Air Force headquarters of Pathankot was attacked, Air Force base was attacked, and the Gurdaspur, where in the past 4 or 5 years, drones from Pakistan have actually entered the Indian territory. And of course, India needs to escalate its surveillance there.
Absolutely. And as you rightly said, this has been a long-standing government-to-government conversation. So
Ji.
we always stand by to support both governments.
Absolutely. No, of course, I mean, your organization will support steadfastly. अगर मैं कहूँ इम्पॉर्टेंट अगर हम टेक्नोलॉजी की बात करें, आपने इतना खूबसूरत तरीके से भी समझाया और मैंने भी वो बात बोली, लेकिन अगर मैं विन विन बात करूँ तो पोटेंशियल बेनिफिट भी आपने बता दिए, लेकिन चैलेंजेस क्या रहेंगे एक ड्रोन को संभालने के लिए अगर कंट्री है टू इंटीग्रेट दिस इनटू कोई भी ड्रोन हो, भले आपका हो किसी का भी हो, व्हाट आर द चैलेंजेस यू एज अ साइंटिस्ट फील कि सिविलियन भी उसमें मजबूत रहे, कंट्री के साइंटिस्ट भी उसको एक एसेट्स की तरह बिल्ड करें और सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस भी. सो व्हाट आर द चैलेंजेस दैट यू थिंक अ कंट्री शुड टेक केयर ऑफ इट्स ड्रोन्स, क्योंकि उड़ते हुए जहाज ही हैं एक तरह से देखा जाए, तो चैलेंजेस क्या रहते हैं किसी भी कंट्री के लिए और खासकर इन ड्रोन्स में क्या क्या हमें देखना चाहिए challenges?
Yeah, so I think any platform and any acquisition, there are some very fundamental areas that have to be considered and looked at, including not only just the platform but the maintenance, the repair and the overhaul of the platform over time, because these things, these platforms, they are relevant for a very, very long time. And so to keep them in the best condition, obviously, there is a lot of maintenance, repair and overhaul focus that needs to happen over time. The other thing is training and logistics, to be able to train the pilots, to be able to maintain the infrastructure that is required.
So you mean to say when the deal goes through and the two countries fructify this, the organization like General Atomics will definitely provide the tech know-how on the ground in terms of the pilots?
Yes, so I mean...
or they will come and train here as well?
Yeah, so I mean, all that is included in the government-to-government discussion as to how all these things are
right.
Implemented.
Right.
But that all comes with the framework that these are long-term assets. It's also leads to interoperability. It leads to, you know, the concept of, for example, the Quad and the like-minded nations that are looking out for national security. All those are...
Especially the maritime borders.
And the maritime domain awareness. That is very, very critical and very important. As you know, there is a vast Indian Ocean region, including vast Indian borders. So all that...
Let me tell you, for that matter, I mean, the 2008 attack, the attackers came using the sea route.
Correct.
So, which is why my question to you, scientifically also, because you're a scientist as well first, then a manager that you are of an organization, how do you see, sir, Dr. Lall, the role of drones in the future of warfare?
Yeah, I think, you know, we have been doing this for a couple of decades now, but now it's getting more and more prominence, unmanned systems around the world. I think the future is unmanned for any of the forces of any country around the world. We are all witnessing that real time. And so I think the role of unmanned platforms will continue to grow in various services around the world. And I think therefore it is imperative to stay on the leading edge of that technology. And the leading edge, because again, you're in a competitive environment. And so if you're not at the leading edge of that technology from a scientific standpoint, then you're moving back.
So these drones, which General Atomics manufactures, they have the capability to carry all sort of weapons, which is why my question was on the warfare.
So the MK9B does have hard points and can...
if we can, our viewers also understand the significance of such drones. So what are the weapons that it can carry?
So that you know, there's quite a few weapon choices that it can carry. For example, it can carry the Hellfire missile. It is one example. But there are various types.
Such as any more?
There are bombs that it can carry. There are you know, other company weapons. There are other country indigenous weapons that you can carry over
Correct.
time, missiles and so forth. So this
And the payload varies.
and the payload can vary whether you're looking at the maritime operation or you're looking at an Air Force operation or one of the key aspects as India looks at this is the jointness of the Air Force, Army and Navy
Absolutely.
to have one platform. That is very, very significant aspect of
Correct. Now, if given an opportunity, would you also want to work closely with the organization in future as well, apart from this deal, with the Indian government and US government as well?
Yes, and I would like to mention that there's been a brilliant initiative in critical and emerging technologies.
Right.
Both the NSAs from both countries were here in Washington D.C. earlier this year, and this was of course launched by both
You
prime
had a
ministers.
chance to meet both Mr. Sullivan and
Yes, in fact, there was an official launch of it in February, and
so you met Mr. Ajit Doval and
yes,
Mr.
correct.
Sullivan, of course.
Yes, and there was a group of us from the industry as well as academia and think tanks and so forth. And it was a great launch, and we have actually partnered with a couple of Indian startups in semiconductors and artificial intelligence, because we are getting down to the basics technologies and seeing how both countries can work together in critical and emerging technologies to remain ahead of the curve.
Right.
And so like-minded nations can actually
Dr. Lall, I'm going to ask you some of now the quirky questions as well. Your favorite Bollywood actor, since Los Angeles is not too far from here, Aishwarya Rai, Preeti Zinta, Tabu, or Angelina Jolie, or Jennifer Aniston, or for that matter, let's say any one of your choice, Hollywood or Bollywood?
I mean, I do enjoy movies from both, and I don't have a favorite as such, but I do enjoy movies from both when time allows.
Avengers, Terminator, Titanic, or Shah Rukh or Amitabh's Sholay or Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum?
I grew up watching Hindi movies
Such as?
at home, including the movies that you have mentioned, Sholay and etc. And I learned Hindi actually through some of those movies, so that will always remain close to my heart.
Okay. Amir Khan, Madhavan, Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt.
I again, it's very hard to pick, but of course, some of the Tom Cruise movies recently that have come out, they've been quite exciting.
Such as?
I think there's one releasing now on Mission Impossible, but I saw the earlier movies where he's doing a lot of stunts with the fighter aircraft, so that was very exciting.
Right. So Indians of course can't do these stunts, and that's why you love Hollywood more. Okay. Given a choice to settle after retirement, Los Angeles, San Diego, New York, Washington DC, Bombay, Delhi, Jakarta, or Africa, because all these countries you grew up in.
Yeah, my heart is in the US and India, so I can see myself splitting my time up between US and India.
Right. After retirement, working with the US government, Indian government, or going to NASA, or going to follow the footsteps of what your mother taught, that is the Vedas.
I think I would incorporate, of course, everything my parents taught in accelerating the US-India conversion.
On this note, we bring an end to this remarkable peek into the life of actually a fabulous scientist who continues to inspire journalists like us who want to chronicle their lives and understand what it takes to become the scientist that he has been, and also leading some of the biggest firms in the last 3 decades or so. That's about it from me, Rohan, on the show India Abroad.